extend the deadline.
I would now yield to Judge Poe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as I know, I've seen all the classified briefings that the State Department has shown us on the issue of the designation of the MEK. Read everything that's come to our attention about the designation. I am not convinced that the MEK ought to stay on the foreign terrorist organization by the United States. Ambassador, you alluded to another classified briefing. Is there more information that this committee hasn't seen regarding why the MEK is still on the designation? Is there recent information, or is there just what are you talking about that you'll furnish another classified briefing on the issue?
My reference to a classified briefing was to the chairman's question about the events of last April and the questions he raised in his letter to Secretary Clinton. It was not, my offer was not with respect to the FTO issue.
Okay. I wanted to be clear on that because
yes, sir.
There is no more information. As far as you know, the State Department has furnished all that information to us either here or in classified briefings. Is that correct?
Sir, I'd be happy to take that question back, but they are looking at it actively now.
So there is more information.
I'd be happy to take that back.
What does that mean?
I'd be happy to take your question back and respond to you in writing.
So you won't tell me here in this hearing it whether there is or is not more information that this committee hasn't received about the designation.
What I can tell you is that they have been working on the package for some months, as you're aware, and I can't speak to every detail on what you might have been briefed on previously, but I'll be happy to take that back.
Well, as far as I know, as far as information you have allowed us to see, you haven't convinced that the FTO designation should remain. That is the key to why we're having this problem. We want these residents to be safe. They want to be able to get refugee status. They want to go to foreign countries, but foreign countries won't take them because the United States still labels them as FTOs, foreign terrorist organization. Now, my question to you, Mr. Ambassador, as Maliki told us, the reason he acts the way he does toward Camp Ashraf is because we, as the United States government, keep them on the FTO list. That's why he wouldn't let this committee go to Camp Ashraf. That's why he wants to have them relocated, because of our designation. That's what he says. That's what he tells us. So I would hope the State Department would reach a decision, as our European friends have, that they should be removed from the FTO list. And the delay costs lives. My question now is, April of 2011, 36 folks in the Camp Ashraf were killed. Are we investigating that? Are we holding anybody accountable for that? Is the United States?
We condemned the loss of life and the killings at Camp Ashraf. We have raised this repeatedly with the Iraqis, and it is out of concern for further violence that Secretary Clinton has asked me to take on this assignment. With respect to...
So are we holding anybody accountable? That's my question. Has anybody been held accountable? Has the Maliki government, the soldiers that came in using American equipment, has anybody to this date been held accountable? Or are we just talking about it?
We have made very clear our deep unhappiness at those killings.
Well, I'm sure that the people, I'm sure that the people whose family members are present and that they were killed in Camp Ashraf are glad that we are deeply concerned. My question is, has anybody in the Iraqi government or anybody anywhere been held accountable for the deaths of those people by our government? That's all my question is.
By our government, I'm not aware of it.
We haven't. The concern is the deadline. People, December 31st, as people on this committee have alluded to and has stated, that's the day of reckoning. Do you think that they will, in the next 24 days, we will be able to assure some kind of agreement with the Maliki government?
I very much hope so, and it is our intention to work with Ambassador Kobler, who's got the lead, to support the conclusion of such an agreement. That cannot happen if the UN is working only with the government of Iraq. The leaders at Ashraf, the people at Camp Ashraf, have to be a part of this process, and we encourage them to step forward and work so that there can be a mutually agreed arrangement rather than something that is unilateral. Unilateral doesn't work. It could end very badly. So we are pushing hard for exactly this, and it's our view that if either an agreement can be reached or enough progress can be made that we could get the time we need to get that kind of agreement. The we in this case is the UN. They have the lead, but we're working actively.
Mr. Rivera?
Have we made it clear that at the December 31st deadline and what the Iraqi government has announced,
I understand.
that is unacceptable to this government?
It is the UN, I was saying earlier, but I'll repeat it. The Ambassador Kobler, heading the efforts for the UN, yesterday after a Security Council session devoted to this issue, said that the deadline needs to be extended.
So the deadline, when the deadline needs to be extended, that means the deadline must be extended. That is our position, the position of the Obama administration, of the United States government. That deadline must be extended. Is that correct?
It is impossible to get everything done before the deadline. However, our ability to get an extension of the deadline, to convince the Iraqi government to extend the deadline, is going to depend on whether there's a serious process underway. And that's why we call on the leaders at Camp Ashraf to get into this process so that we have the best chance of a peaceful outcome, which is what we all seek.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for Ambassador Fried. What, in your opinion, is the biggest obstacle to the State Department lifting the or delisting MEK as a terrorist organization?
It's not a question of obstacles. It's a question of a review of the facts and the law in this case. And that decision will be made by the Secretary. The memo is in preparation. It will be, and it's a long package of documents. It'll be sent to her. She'll have to make that decision. That's all I can say at this time, sir.
When did the EU delist this organization? Do you recall?
I would have to get.
It's been quite a while, has it not?
It was over a year ago, I believe.
Are there any different facts you think that?
We have our own data and we have our own legal standards. We're of course aware of what the EU has done, and it is obviously timely to review that. The Clinton administration, the Bush administration decided this one way, and this administration is looking at the issue now.
Thank you. I yield back.
All right. Mr. Filner, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, if I may, I know we have to adjourn. By the way, the absurdity of the listing of the of the MEK as a terrorist organization is shown by your testimony. On the one hand, we're treating them as terrorists. Now, you're saying, oh, but they have to engage, they have to sit at the table, they have to take a role. You're treating them in a way that says, oh, they're legitimate parties here. Well, if they're legitimate parties, delist them. You can't, I don't know why you think you can have it both ways. You're calling someone terrorist and say, oh, please be engaged in this process, you terrorists. We don't trust you at the table because you're going to take out a gun or something and shoot us, but please sit there. Come on, that's absurd. And the whole thing of you're talking about urgency. I mean, all your stuff is on process. We can't promise timelines. I mean, you're presently now, if I understand it, your official position is envoy about the closing of Guantanamo. Is that your official title?
Special envoy for closure of Guantanamo, yeah. Yes, sir.
Oh, good. I hope we don't move as slow as we did on that one, on this case. Look, we got 25 days. We haven't closed it, right?
We can get into the reason.
We haven't closed it, have we?
No, sir.
Okay, so 2 years from now, I hope you'll say, well, you know, we were trying to deal with Ashraf, but, you know, there were complexities there. Look, you got 25 days. I don't hear from you the assurance that many of these people would like to hear, because they have relatives there, they have close friends there, that somehow the United States is going to take action that does not depend on all these other complexities. If you just recommend it today, I don't know, half dozen troops stay there at Camp Ashraf, or recommend today that the Security Council take this action, or recommend today that the UN take some specific action. You're not doing that. You keep talking about the complexities and the timelines, and you can't comment on this, and there's this and that. Give us some assurance that what you just said, you think the situation is dire. I don't see any evidence that you think the situation is dire. It takes months for us to get a letter from the Secretary on these issues. We tried to visit Camp Ashraf. They won't let us. How do we know the situation is dire?
Time, I would
I yield that. Thank you.
Ambassador a chance to answer the question, and hopefully we'll give Ms. Jackson-Lee a chance to ask her question. Yes. Mr. Ambassador, would you like to answer that?
Hard to know where to begin, but we do regard the situation as serious, and the word dire is appropriate.
And do something today which shows that. What can you tell us today
We are
that the United States is going to do to protect
Miller,
those
if you
people?
want him to answer your question.
Yeah,
you
but he
should.
just goes
We've
on
only
with
got-
this
we only
bureaucratic baloney.
We got a couple minutes. Mr.
right.
Ambassador, please, you got 15 seconds. We're going to give Jackson-Lee a minute, then we've got to run off and vote.
The best way to resolve this peacefully is to work with the UN to get a negotiated solution quickly
With
so, so that the people there can leave the camp in safety and security. That's what we're aiming at, and we are indeed working intensely every single day.
Okay, Ms. Jackson-Lee, would you have a question?
Chairman, I have to
1
take a
minute.
second to thank you and Mr. Carnahan. This is a miracle. To believe that we have a full hearing on Camp Ashraf is absolutely a miracle and a tribute to the Iranian Americans that are sitting in this room. But let me just say, on April 8th, the Iraqi army and police under the command of Mr. Maliki attacked Camp Ashraf with ammunition and weapons, I believe, from the United States. At least 34 people were killed and 8 women were killed. At the end of this month, Mr. Maliki determines to close this. Ambassador Freed and to Ms. Leaf, I thank you for your service. I have this question for you immediately. Just what is the United States intending to do? I want you to cut off funds from Maliki. I want Maliki, as he comes, I appreciate the sovereignty and I appreciate the dignity of his office, but I believe he should not have an Oval Office meeting with the president until he agrees before he walks into that Oval Office that he will not murder, kill, and maim the people in Camp Ashraf. He does not deserve a seat with our president if he is not going to agree before that meeting. What are you prepared to do to stop the bloodshed? Are our soldiers going to be there? Are you going to insist that if there is an extension? What are you intending to do, if I may just have that answer?
Message back and give us an answer. Will this president meet with Prime Minister Maliki, even if he has not made an agreement on this issue? Come to an understanding.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask him, will he have soldiers there? Are you going to absolutely stop them from closing it?
After many years and the expense of blood and treasure, our soldiers are leaving Iraq. We are working flat out to support arrangements for the safe and secure, humane relocation of the residents of Camp Ashraf. We are doing so on an urgent basis, very mindful of the calendar and the ticking clock. That is where our efforts are focused.
Could you go to the address, Ms. Jackson-Lee's original question? Is the President of the United States going to be meeting with Prime Minister Maliki, even if he has not reached an understanding on this issue? And if you do not know the answer, will you take that to the State Department and let them know how concerned we are about it?
I will first, I will certainly take back the concern of this committee, absolutely, sir.
Okay.
And secondly, I will say that, in my judgment, the best way to convey the gravity of the situation and the concerns of this committee is to have that meeting and go forward with it.
Okay. This hearing will be adjourned in one moment when I just lead the thought. actions speak louder than words. If you're talking to somebody, he's going to understand that that's weakness rather than if you don't talk to him.
And it's a human rights issue, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ranking.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson-Lee. This part of the hearing is in recess until after the next vote.